I'm Matt Bouchard here in Seattle for NAREIT's 2018 ESG Forum. Joining me today is Cliff Majersik, the Executive Director of the Institute for Market Transformation. Cliff, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Matt.
Now, can you start by talking about the benefits to landlords in terms of implementing green leases?
Green leases are a great way for landlords and tenants to work together to make their buildings greener, more energy efficient, and more water efficient, more profitable for both the landlord and the tenant. So they're win-win leases where everybody comes out ahead when the building is more energy efficient, more water efficient, more productive. You're sharing equitably the costs with your tenants. That includes things like CapEx recovery for any improvements that you make that will lower your tenant's utility bills, information sharing between the landlord and tenant, and so that the landlords can benchmark the building so they can understand the efficiency, so the tenants know how they fit, how they compare to other tenants potentially, what they can do to make the buildings better. It's setting joint goals for improving the building between the landlord and the tenant, and communicating back and forth so everyone knows who to work with to make the building better.
Now, how was IMT's Green Lease Leaders program redesigned with input from REIT sustainability leaders?
So we have an industry advisory committee that includes a number of REITs, a number of folks who are here at the ESG Forum are part of our advisory committee, and they advised us. I think people were already pretty happy with the Green Lease Leaders program, but the biggest change, I think, is that there's now a second level. It used to just be you were a Green Lease Leader or you weren't. Now there's a silver and gold level of Green Lease Leader recognition.
Picking up on green leases, I know you have a landlord and tenant partnership program that's aimed at making their spaces more energy efficient. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. The Landlord-Tenant Energy Partnership is a couple years old, but it really ramped up last year. We had a target of 25 participating landlords and tenants, and we actually have 46 now, including quite a few REITs. Several of the folks that are here are participating in our Landlord-Tenant Energy Partnership. So it is a partnership, as it sounds, bringing together landlords and tenants to work together to get in the same room, to get in the same calls, webinars, to share their contact information, their best practices, to work on pilot projects, for instance, sub-metering tenants where the landlords are charging the tenants for their actual utilities, and to work on anything that will help them overcome the split incentives problem, help them make their spaces more energy and water efficient, greener, higher performing. It's in partnership with a number of folks. We launched it in partnership with the U.S. Department of Energy and with ICSC and RILA, the Retail Industry Leaders Association. And so, as you know, those partnerships would indicate there is an initial strong participation by a number of retail landlords and national retailers, big companies, you know, the sort of Nikes and Apples of the world. But there's also working with office and industrial tenants. The goal is to help these folks work together to share best practices, to have relationships so that they can work out better leasing language, better agreements, better information sharing. The tenants are working on site selection to give preference to energy efficient buildings when they go out to lease, to ask the right questions that will actually help empower the sustainability folks at the landlords to say, hey, look, tenants are asking for this, we should be investing in this.
And lastly, in the last couple of months, Chicago and New York City both adopted new laws that will require energy grades are displayed at the entrances of buildings. What impact do you see this having on property owners, and do you think this is the kind of thing that'll catch on and we'll see more cities doing it?
I think that the action items out of these laws are the same as the action items out of the benchmarking and transparency laws. Make your buildings better. You know, you're going to have more people seeing it, and there's going to be a greater benefit to having high-performing buildings. Make sure you understand how your buildings are performing. Now, all the buildings that are subject to these new laws were already subject to New York and Chicago's benchmarking and transparency laws. So they don't really need to do anything new to comply with the law. They'll just, you know, the cities are just going to generate these. In the case of New York, it's a letter grade. In the case of Chicago, it's a number of stars. They're just going to generate that based on the data you're already submitting as you comply with the benchmarking and transparency laws in those two cities. But it makes it all the more important to look carefully. Have you done a good job of benchmarking? Do you have accurate information that is being submitted? And of course, are there things that you can do to make your buildings better that will make them look better for everybody walking in, seeing this on the entrance?
Great. Cliff, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
For more on ESG related topics, be sure to visit NAREIT's website, REIT.com.